I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into our pregame show today. It is not Mike Kadlick in this chair because our good buddy ditched us today. So it is Brian Hines filling in and joined, as always, by the wonderful Tayler Kyles. And Taylor, happy May Day, buddy. It is Drake Maye's first career start here at Gillette Stadium against the Houston Texans. Those are words we've been waiting to say for months, Taylor. And I actually went back October 8th. When the news broke for Drake Maye that he's starting this week. I went back and looked. Do you know where we were October 8th last year?
I'm assuming we were watching a game that they lost.
We were right here at Gillette Stadium a week after they got their pants taken off by the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, yes.
And then they played the New Orleans Saints here, and I believe it was 34-0. And I was in the press box tweeting Drake Maye highlights. So this day has been a while in the making. It is exciting. But there also should be expectations put in place. He's a 22-year-old rookie. It's his first career start against a good Houston Texans defense. So, Taylor, what are your expectations for Drake Maye today?
Well, first and foremost, Brian, the first one on the beat to really get on the Drake Maye hype train. And as you can see, the Carolina Blue. If anybody deserved to wear the Carolina Blue for May Day, it is this here, Brian Hines. But expectations, I mean, we have to set them, obviously. We can't go out here and expect Drake Maye to throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's just not fair for a rookie. I've been hoping that this is going to be a very run-heavy game plan where they're not going to put him in harm's way. Alex Van Pelt mentioned this Houston Texans pass rush. They're ferocious. Not just Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, but the fact that they can go from the edge, inside, or all over the formation and cause havoc. So for Drake Maye, I'm thinking this game is going to be a lot of play action, a lot of moving pockets, try to mitigate that pass rush, maybe some screens, ideally to tight ends. Alex Van Pelt, I'm looking at you, mister. These running back screens ain't been working, my friend, but those tight end delays, want to see more of those. But things that are going to get the ball out of his hand, especially early on, I think you just want to give the kid some confidence. But then I think it's going to be very important that there's going to be some quick game in there, but I'm thinking from empty, maybe in some, 6-7 man pass protections, I want to see Drake Maye go downfield. We know the explosive play has been missing. They've been available. They haven't had a quarterback to capitalize on them, as tough as Jacoby Brissett was and as much as he tried to do for this offense. But Drake Maye gives you the arm talent, gives you that big playability, and then also the mobility, whether it's design runs, scrambles, or just getting out of the pocket to make plays with his legs. I'm expecting him to give us those wow plays that we've been lacking, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we see a turnover just as he kind of settles into the NFL. He even mentioned, he told his teammates, I'm going to be nervous out here to start, so we might see a little bit of early jitters and some rookie mistakes. But at the end of the day, I think we got to really hold on to the exciting parts and the positives while understanding that the tough things are going to come as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Alex Van Pelt, and this is kind of, I know all eyes are rightfully on Drake Maye, but this is kind of a big test for Alex Van Pelt.
Yeah.
Because he's on the clock now. Like, the Ferrari is out of the garage. It is go time for Alex Van Pelt. So you mentioned some of the schematic changes that could help Drake Maye in this one. Will be exciting to see. I'd love to see some pistol, right?
Yes, pistol.
That's something he did a lot in college. You can still run your under center run game. You can run the play action off of it. So I would love to see some pistol. If they do that, you might have to come do a wellness check on me in the press box over here. So I would love the pistol from Alex.
If I hear a thud on the other side of the press box, I'm going to assume that Brian lost consciousness.
Going right backwards there because Drake Maye's in the pistol. So, but you mentioned the tight ends, the pass catchers. All of these guys should really get a boost with Drake Maye. Is there anyone in this one you're particularly looking at as a pass catcher to build some chemistry with Maye here?
On this show, I've been talking about Jalen Polk. I've been talking about Demario Douglas. I'm going to throw out a name that I thought of this weekend. I don't think we're talking about enough. Tyquan Thornton. Now, obviously, healthy scratch. Oh, okay. Well, Tyquan Thornton's a healthy scratch. Never mind. That's why we have producer extraordinaire Amit behind the camera. Not going to be Tyquan Thornton's week. I figured with Drake Maye, you'd like to see at least seeing that Tyquan Thornton can air it out and use his speed. So I'm going to pivot back to the choices I've been making. It's going to be Jalen Polk, and it's going to be Demario Douglas. Now, Jalen Polk, we know that he and Drake Maye have been working together and working on their chemistry since they got to Foxboro together. They were staying after practices in the spring and summer, trying to get that chemistry down. And we also know that that Drake Maye got reps with the starters and the backups. I assume still continue to work with Jalen Polk. We haven't seen Polk and Brissett. We didn't see them able to get on the same page. I think we're going to see more of that from Maye. And then also Demario Douglas. He likened Demario Douglas to Josh Downs, who was his favorite target his first year as a starter at UNC. So I think we'll finally be able to see Demario Douglas unlocked, not just on the inside breaking stuff that we've seen and on the screens and all that, but down the field. Demario Douglas really hasn't been using that capacity outside of a couple seam throws, but we saw with Drake Maye in that drive he had against the Jets, anticipation throw over the middle. Hopefully we see him stretch the field so Demario Douglas can stretch his legs a little bit.
He had one last week. Remember, they finally dialed up a shot play and they blocked it well, and Jacoby kind of led him into the end zone instead of leading him to the side. That's a throw that maybe Drake Maye could make and unlock Pop Douglas there. So in the beginning there, you mentioned back to Drake, like the run game. They're going to really have to rely on the run game today. Unfortunately, no Ramondre Stevenson. He is out with that foot injury he suffered late last week. So it's the Antonio Gibson show. They elevated Terrell Jennings, a bit of a surprise, I would say, over Kevin Harris, who they've liked. But I was a big fan of Terrell Jennings in the preseason, runs hard. So it's him, Antonio Gibson, and JaMycal Hasty. Is that enough if they want to rely on the run game this week?
It's going to have to be honest. Now, Antonio Gibson's shown a lot of flashes. I'm really excited to see what he can potentially do as the bell cow in the backfield because he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities, but he's absolutely capitalized on them. Then you got JaMycal Hasty. He's got some wiggle inside, more of a change of pace receiving type back, but he can do a little something when it comes to bouncing runs and taking what the defense gives him in between the tackles. And then Terrell Jennings. That surprised me that it wasn't Kevin Harris a little bit because we've seen Kevin Harris, the contact balance looked much better this summer. He looked like he'd taken a step forward, but also Jennings looked like he could potentially be a 3-down player in that he can catch the ball. Great effort as a blocker and pass protection as well. And then as a runner, another guy with really good contact balance, good vision, showed a lot this summer, and we were excited and hoping that he would remain on the roster, so he gets the elevation. Again, it's going to have to be enough, but Antonio Gibson seems like the kind of back who can carry the load after doing a lot with a little so far this season.
And I feel like every time he's touched the ball, he's been turning out big yards, Antonio Gibson. So more Antonio Gibson could be a good thing for this offense. And it sounds like we might be headed towards an offensive explosion with Drake Maye the way we're talking about this. So if you like any of those players or if you want to get in on the Drake Maye action, make sure you head to Prize Picks today. I wanted to put Drake Maye just more in my lineup. Barth, unfortunately, wouldn't let us do it on Patsby, and he made me put Drake Maye more than half an interception in our Prize Picks lineup this week.
Bad juju.
I understand there might be some rookie moments in this one, but more than half an interception was tough. So I'm going all Drake Maye more on my Prize Picks lineup. Maybe some Pop Douglas yardage could be a good one to put in your lineup. And you can head over to Prize Picks and use code CLNS. And once you play your first $5 hand, you get $50 free. That is code CLNS again on Prize Picks. So, Taylor, let's go over to some transactions over the last few days. Patriots getting some players back, especially on defense. Sione Takitaki activated off the PUP list, free agent signing. Elliott Wolf's a big fan of him from Cleveland. We haven't seen him, obviously, really throughout the summer. He's been out. He had a scope on his knee done. So Takitaki will come back. They're without Juwan Bentley on that second level, so maybe a big boost here, especially defending the run and maybe the pass, too, because he's more of an athletic linebacker.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they need it. And one thing about Takitaki, he's more similar to a Jelani Tavai where he can play inside, can also play that adjuster role where he slides down to the line of scrimmage, mostly as a run defender, not really as a pass rusher. He's not really a Mack Wilson type. But one thing that this Patriots run defense has really been lacking is that physicality at middle linebacker. Raekwon McMillan has really done his best. His effort's been outstanding, and he really works his butt off in coverage. But when it comes to run defense, you look at the Patriots since week 3 when they started playing all these Shanahanian offenses, they've allowed the 3rd most explosive runs in the NFL. Very uncharacteristic of them. I spoke to Jerry Montgomery, and he said, especially last week, allowing 100 yards on the ground is not their standard. And then that's even ticked over to the pass defense where because they have to play all this zone coverage to respect the run, they can't play the man they want to, and it's made them vulnerable over the middle of the field at the second level on those in-breakers I've been talking about for a couple weeks. Now, Takitaki, I think, gives you a little bit more of that physicality where he can get off those blocks, because McMillan is typically at the point of attack, really play side on, I think, almost all of those explosive runs over the past few weeks. Taki gives you that ability to get off those blocks and make tackles, not get swallowed by those big offensive linemen. Now, he is not the end-all, be-all. You know, Juwan Bentley is not a player that you can replace necessarily with just one person, but I'm hoping this will make them more competitive, whether that means that Taki's in Tavai's role as a weak side linebacker going down to the edge at some points, or if that means Taki truly taking over at inside linebacker, whether that's on early downs or late downs.
And you imagine he'll get eased into things a little bit. Again, like this, he didn't practice all of training camp, really not any OTAs too. He wasn't out there. So this is his first real action with this defense. So he might get eased into things. So you assume another big role and big day for Marte Mapu. Wore the green dot last week in his first game back, played 100% of the snaps. They'll also have, looks like they'll have Kyle Duggar back. We'll have inactives in a few moments here, but he was just out there, the safety for warm-ups. He missed last week's game. He was questionable coming into this one. So it looks like Kyle Duggar will be back. Marte Mapu, again, could play a big role. So how do you see those kind of defensive pieces and Taki in that mix? How do you see those defensive pieces looking this week against Houston?
Marte Mapu was hustling last week. I want to make that very clear. I liked his play diagnosis. He was flying around the field, but he was spending a lot of time near the line of scrimmage, especially on early downs. That's not where I want to see him personally. Now, I like him as a dime linebacker where you know the pass is coming and he can use his athleticism to cover tight ends. I like him as a safety on the back end because of his intelligence and his range and all those things, but I think it's tough because he's not built to take on offensive linemen. Now, he did a better job than he did last season where he's knifing under guys or around blocks to make himself active and still be around the ball, but you also saw him get pancaked multiple times. That's a role where I'd like to see Kyle Duggar. I want to see him on those potential run situations near the line of scrimmage, taking on some of those offensive linemen. I showed against the 49ers before he left, he had a play where he stacked and shedded against Trent Williams, a future Hall of Fame left tackle. Now, he's not going to be doing that every single play, but I think that added physicality will be a huge boost and allow Marte Mapu to maybe spend more time in the slot and maybe on the back end where I feel like he's better on those early downs.
One other roster move, the Patriots elevated lawn snapper Tucker Addington, who they signed on Friday. Obviously someone they're familiar with. This is his third stint with the team. He's played games before when Joe Cardona has missed time, and that's exactly what's going to happen this week. Joe Cardona is out with a calf injury, so Tucker Addington will get lawn snapping duties. I know lawn snapping, it's not sexy, it's not that fun, but
not sexy to some.
Joe Cardona, I know, I'm all in. I'll be watching Tucker Addington, trust me. But Joe Cardona has been a sneaky good coverage player for them this year. 4 tackles, I believe, because kind of a new scheme under Jeremy Sprainer, and special teams. You know, maybe they can keep this a little bit more competitive with Drake Maye out there, a big special teams player too. And we saw the roller coaster the special teams unit was last week against the Dolphins. So maybe the Joe Cardona loss could be noteworthy here.
Absolutely. Now, Joe Cardona hasn't had a tackle in, I think, 1 or 2 weeks. I think last week actually may have been the first week that he actually didn't have a tackle. But yeah, that's going to be significant. Now, one guy that I want to mention now, Brendan Schooler, got his love. He got the extension, obviously, this weekend. That was huge. 3 years. He'll be around for a while. He's been an All-Pro candidate, really, for the past few years, and I feel like in the NFLPA actually did elect him an All-Pro for their team. I feel like he's starting to catch momentum and get more respect throughout the NFL. But another guy that I think is not getting enough love yet is Christian Ellis. He's really had a strong past couple weeks, obviously forced a fumble against the 49ers. Also had a couple plays on special teams last week in coverage and as a blocker where he completely stymied somebody, I believe, on the punt block unit. So those two guys obviously going to have to pick up some of that slack because, as you mentioned, Joe Cardona really unlocked something in himself because now he's able to tackle. Told us that wasn't something he was allowed to do in previous seasons, which is very odd. But we'll see what Tucker Addington can do too because I guess because of the old scheme, long snappers didn't get a chance to show that at all. So maybe he's got little hidden talents that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, so we'll see. So those are your 2 roster moves. We'll have inactives coming out any moment here. But if you want to be here in the beautiful Gillette Stadium, it's throwback week. The Pat Patriot is out. Drake Maye is starting. Make sure you guys are going on Game Time right now. You can sit up there for about $44, $45, or you can use the wonderful Game Time Picks feature, which filters out the fluff, and you can move right down to the lower level for just $102 on Game Time. It's a little chilly here, but
a little bit.
The rain's going to hold off. Of course, you know, Mike bails and I get tapped in on the coldest day of the season, of course. But
enjoy the wedding, buddy.
It's football weather. It's perfect. And again, the rain's going to hold off, so that's the biggest thing here. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. There we go. We just bought you a beer if you show up. So terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Taylor, what time is it?
Game time.
So did we get inactives here? Let's see.
We got some from Aaron Wilson. Yes, we did.
All right, who we got?
All right, so we have got Tyquan Thornton and Javon Baker look like they will be healthy scratches. As we know, long snapper Joe Cardona will not play. Eric Johnson is going to be inactive this week for the second week in a row. Jaquelin Roy will be active over him as that rotational nose tackle. Allows Devon Godshaw to play more odd defensive end over offensive tackles. I actually talked to him about that this week. He mentioned no offensive tackle should block him one-on-one. That's going to be huge against Laramie Tunsil, a guy he has a lot of respect for. Mentioned he used to play against in college back when they were in the SEC. Godshaw was at LSU, and then Laramie Tunsil was at Ole Miss. Also, Ramondre Stevenson inactive as expected. Layden Robinson will actually be inactive. I know he's dealing with ankle and wrist injuries, but the biggest takeaways for me there are that Kyle Duggar, active. Again, we mentioned how important he could be, especially against the run. Nick Leverett will play. Now, he's someone that we weren't sure what his status was going to be. Patriots brought in a ton of centers this week. You know, Ben Brown, they signed to the active roster. Sincere Hainsworth, they signed to the practice squad. And then, obviously, Brian Hudson, probably going to be the top backup option at center for them. So huge. They have the same offensive line combination, Brian, for the second week in a row. We haven't seen that yet. So unless something crazy happens during warmups, huge development for the Patriots having the same lineup there. And Anthony Jennings, obviously, with these outside zone schemes, he's been a big boost when he's out there on the field. So great to have him on the field. He was listed as questionable.
Yeah, the center position will be interesting because they didn't elevate Hudson this week. So it's Nick Leverett, the presumed starter, but you know, he was on the injury report last week. It was his first game as a center, so you don't want to get on him too much, but 10 pressures was 10 pressures, right? And so it looks like he'll be back, but Ben Brown, who flew in from Vegas Wednesday night, he signed Thursday. He had 2 practices under his belt. He's going to be the main backup center here. And the other thing on the offensive line, Vidarian Lowe off the injury report, so good game for him last week. He's fully healthy, seems like ready to go. What do you think? Can they protect Drake Maye against Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter here? We have the same offensive line, so are you a little more confident maybe?
I certainly hope so. Now, Vidarian Lowe had a perfect game last week. No pressures, and he didn't have any losses either. But obviously, he's going to be going up against mostly Will Anderson Jr., much tougher test than what he had against Chop Robinson. But we'll see how he holds up. Alex Van Pelt mentioned that Lowe has been playing at a high level, called him the best pass-protecting left tackle that they have, or offensive tackle, period. Pretty high praise there, although, of course, it's not a very high bar considering the Patriots' injury situation. Demontre Jacobs going to have his hand full against Danielle Hunter, a veteran who has every trick in the book. That's going to be a big reason I think the Patriots need to make sure they avoid passing in long yardage or obvious passing situations when they don't have to. I think we're going to see a lot more of the run game in those situations like we did at times last week.
Definitely early downs will be key this week. Stay ahead of the chain, stay ahead of schedule. So Houston Texans inactives, Robert Woods is out. The big thing for me, Kamari Lassiter and Jimmy Ward, corner and safety. Those guys, Lassiter plays pretty much 100% of their defensive snaps. Jimmy Ward, safety, right around 80% of their defensive snaps. So they're missing 2 key guys in the secondary. Should make life easier for Drake Maye. Lassiter spends a lot of his time in the slot, I believe, so maybe more good news for Pop Douglas there.
More Jalen Petrie, more Miles Bryant. That sounds like a good matchup.
Exactly. So those are your inactives this week. We will wrap it up. I'm ready to go inside in the warm and go eat some steak tips. But before we wrap up, Taylor, what are your game keys for the Patriots to walk out victorious against the Houston Texans this week?
Yeah, I got 3 for you, Brian. The first one, I'm going to go 1. Get to 30-plus carries, for real this time. Now, I said this last week, and we saw what happened. I think the Patriots, especially with the rookie quarterback in his first NFL game, really need to rely on the ground game to make sure that he doesn't have to carry the entire offense. 2, protect your edges. Like I mentioned, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., one of the most dynamic edge duos in the NFL. You have to make sure they don't wreck the game for you. Part of that goes into the run game. And then number 3, control the line of scrimmage on defense. Joe Mixon's going to play in this game. They need to make sure the Patriots run defense that he is not someone who takes over, because if you don't know what's coming on early downs, that just sets you up for failure against C.J. Stroud. You need to be able to get to your man coverage and match up with these Texans wide receivers, even without Nico Collins. And then make sure that you keep C.J. Stroud in the pocket. That's part of controlling the line of scrimmage. Can't let him extend plays if possible.
All right, well, that'll do it. It's Drake Maye time, baby. Taylor, thanks for having me today. Happy to fill in. Make sure you guys, if you want to come here, check out Game Time again. Use code CLNS. Go lock in your Prize Picks lineups. Again, use code CLNS. Make sure you're locked on to Patriots Press Pass. Taylor will be back after the game to break it all down, and you can also follow him at tkyles39 on Twitter, and you can go to me at I am Brian Hines on Twitter. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in with us today, and enjoy the game.